to do a 5-part series. It's all to do with the things that can go wrong. So I don't want to get people depressed, but there are lots of things that can go wrong. And the secret to being successful is being aware of when these situations crop up, that they have occurred, and what you can do to mitigate them. So, having puppies is not necessarily an easy thing. There's lots of things that can go wrong, and most of those things you do have some control over. Not everything. Things just go wrong because it's bad luck. But at the same time, these are all things that we need to discuss. I have talked about all of these various different things in detail in other videos, but not like this as a whole collection. So you're going to look at this. If you want more specific information on things like tube feeding, you can go look at my videos on that. But I'm going to try to address all the things that I can think of, the things that you need to be aware of so that you don't step in the muck. All right, so first one's going to be on the AI process. If you don't get your AI right, you ain't going to get any puppies. If you get your AI too early, too late, you're going to get a small litter. If you do the AI wrong, you can hurt your dog and get an infection, things like pyometria that can be an absolute disaster. So let's go into a little bit of detail about the steps you're going to go into to get your AI right. And when I say AI, this also, of course, works for all dogs. This is not just dogs that like Frenchies that I'm involved in, where they typically have artificial inseminations, but all dogs, whether they're having an artificial or natural tie, to get the timing right is paramount to having a good litter. All right, so the first thing is you want to detect day one. Day one is signified by the first drops of blood. So we want to find out when day one occurs, because we're going to time everything pretty much off day one. Most dogs are going to get bred, so we're going to do most breedings and it'll be bred between day 11 through 13, typical, with a progesterone level of something around 15. We'll talk about more of that in detail here. Not all dogs show blood. So how do you know when day one is? Well, start paying attention to the way your dog's behaving. If her back end's starting to puff up, if she is spending a lot of time cleaning herself back there, if she's humping on other dogs, if other dogs are humping on her, if she's being more affectionate towards you, if she's got some behavioral changes, they're all indications that maybe we are coming up to or we are at day one. The problem is that some dogs, and we talked about another whole series I did on heats, where some dogs have silent heats, prolonged heats, late heats, absent heats. There can be lots of things that go on with this. So you can go review those videos to find out a bit more about the actual process of the heat itself. But we want to try to find day one, because we want to start introducing these dogs together about day 11 or 13, something in that range. So if we're doing a natural mating, so for the natural mating, things to watch out for, things that can go wrong. Aggressive dogs. Someone can get hurt, especially in big dogs. When I used to do labs, we just put the labs together and we'd observe them from 50 feet away and let them get on with it. Most of the time we wouldn't do an artificial insemination, we just let the dogs do it. But we were very careful when we introduced a male dog to a female that she's not been around before, to make sure that the behavior is not overly aggressive. The male dog can be very insistent about getting the job done. The female may not be ready, and there can be a fight. There can be some biting, and you might get bitten yourself. So just, what I would do is introduce the dogs together with leashes on them, with two people, somebody holding the female, somebody holding the male, let them get close together on a tight leash so you can control the situation, because you don't want somebody to get hurt, you or the dogs. So that's the part about natural mating. I'd say something else about natural mating is sometimes, especially inexperienced males, can't get the job done. If the female is not being receptive, if she wants to sit down, if she doesn't want to have that male dog messing around with her, if she won't let that dog on her back, it's very likely that you're early or late in the whole process. And what you can do is you can do vaginal cytology, where you take a swab, look under a microscope, and I've got videos on this, so you can see whether she's fully cornified, whether she's in the right place for breeding. You could do a progesterone test, and you're looking for progesterone level on an IDEX machine in nanograms per milliliter as being something around a 15. If you're in Europe, where we do it in nanomoles, it's 3.18 times that number. So rather than being a 15, it's more like close to a 50. So if they won't naturally mate, then your next choice is to do an artificial insemination. And I used to do that quite a bit with labs, especially when the thing wasn't getting done right for whatever reason. I'd step in and do an artificial insemination myself. So let's now talk about the artificial insemination part of it, because that's what I do these days. In Frenchies, by the way, we do all of ours as artificial inseminations. Why? Because French bulldogs don't have a very good success rate at getting it done naturally. What tends to happen is the poor male just gets exhausted trying and trying and trying, and eventually he might ejaculate and end up with a sample on the ground, and then he can't be used again for a day or two, and he may have missed your window. There are things like brucellosis. Brucellosis, and we sell tests for this. It's a sexually transmitted disease. If you've got a male dog that you know nothing about, who's never been tested, likewise for a female, it's quite possible that they could transmit to each other brucellosis and then wipe out that ability for that dog to ever have successful litters and infect other dogs. So I recommend anybody who's doing anything to do with mating of dogs that they check the male and the female for brucellosis every 6 months. And if you ever bring a dog into your fold that is over 6 months old, do a brucellosis test. It's cheap. We sell, I think, 5 tests for $79. You do have to draw blood to do the test. You get the results in like 10 minutes. You don't want any part of this. If this dog has brucellosis, it doesn't want to be anywhere on your property. So be aware of brucellosis. All right. So now we're going to do the physical. Let me look at my notes here real quick. Yes. Okay. So the next thing then is technique for the physical AI. So I've got videos on this. I'm not going to go into this in any great detail. But the timing for this is going to be 11 to 15 is going to be we'll get rid of this. We're looking for a progesterone level on an IDEX machine of 15 to start breeding. We want to breed, I like to breed twice. Breed 2 days later, then breed 2 days later. And we want to see a progesterone level that's something around a 22 or higher. If you're doing a TCI, transcervical insemination, or a surgical insemination, you want to start doing those at more like a 25. And you may just do one of those. What I actually like to do is a vaginal at 15 and a TCI or SI at 25. I like that. And I prefer TCIs over surgicals, because this you have to cut the dog's stomach open, intubate the dog, put it on anesthesia. This you don't. I prefer the TCI over the surgical. But either way, you've got to get the technique right. And if you're doing a vaginal AI yourself, then cleanliness is important to all of this. That means glove up. That means wipe down anything you possibly can. Fresh AI rods, brand new syringes, don't reuse anything. Scrub your hands up, wipe off the dog's vulva before you ever insert anything in there. Clean off the dog's penis as best you can as well. Try to minimize bacterial infection, dirt, and anything else getting into the female, because that can end up with pyometria, basically uterus that's got infected, and that can be fatal to the dog. It can be a complete loss of the litter. There's all kinds of bad things about pyometria, and I've got videos specifically on that. Don't forget about your male too. Your male can get hurt during this. One of the things that I see happen occasionally is where the sheath of the penis does not, after the dog has performed, you've collected from him, done an AI, whatever it is, the sheath of the penis does not go back over the gland, and he's then got an exposed gland that might be constricted and get very red and swollen. And in those situations, you want to get that put back inside the sheath. How do you do that? Vaseline. Get some Vaseline, swather them up real good, and you can normally just retract the sheath over. I've never had a situation where I couldn't fix that problem. And it's not that common. I used to have a stud dog that I'd have to go check on him always because you have a problem. I don't have any stud dogs that have that problem these days. And it's not an issue, it's just you've got to be aware of it, because you don't want damage to the dog's penis. Cause him problems, could cause an infection, might make him infertile. There you go. Okay, what else have we got on my little list here? Yeah, so I think that's that for the next one. So we're going to tick that off the list. So there's that one. Next one's going to be on the actual pregnancy itself. All right, catch you on the next one. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate people who subscribe to me. It helps me, encourage me to do more of these videos. But do remember, disclaimer here, I am not a vet. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm purely a person who's been breeding dogs for the last couple of decades. Any information that you got from this video, use at your own risk. There's nothing implied here, and certainly this should not be used as a substitute for advice from your veterinarian or your medical professional. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more of them. Bye.